I forgot my glasses, so, you know, there's that. I could wear my sunglasses, and I could kind of see you. I have to erase this just because I'm going to lean up against the chalkboard and ruin my seersucker jacket. I appreciate the, I have no idea who did that. Okay. So, yeah, I can't do this. It's just, this makes me too cool. All right, any questions? Oh, wait, let me make sure I didn't forget the quiz again. Oh, I did. Maybe I did. That's last week's quiz. Oh, good news, I have it right here. Well, this will be one of those good ones that you don't have to drop. I think I'm dropping 3 anyway, right?
Yeah.
And then if you went to the Jewish mysticism thing, that's 4. And then the rest are just a little bit more than 1% total on your overall. So it'd be like getting. So say you got 5 out of 10 on a quiz. And then if you missed them, if you got bad grades because you weren't there because you have too many absences, you're kind of screwed anyway because of the absence policy. So there's really, like dropping the quiz grade wouldn't really help anyway. But I'll look into it. I appreciate crazy scrawled threatening notes written on the, yeah.
The absence policy again. Yeah, you said something about absence policy.
Yeah, it's in the syllabus.
It's like 2%.
I forget what it is exactly, but yeah, it's if you miss. I mean, if you get sick and you've been in contact with me, then you don't really have to worry about it.
Yeah, it says students that exceed 2 absences at the semester's end can expect 2 full percentage points deducted from their final grade for each additional unexcused absence.
Yeah. I know, brutal. But then if you don't have that, then nobody comes to class. All right, do you have any questions? I'm glad this happened after the evaluations. No questions. If you have anxieties, which I see some of you becoming very anxious, just contact me and we'll talk about it. Yeah.
So did Perdita and I forget the Prince guy, did they actually get married or did they just like understand that they could get married if they wanted to?
They did get married.
Yeah.
They did? Okay.
Yeah, it went off. It was an off scene.
Oh, okay.
I think. That's what I understand. I mean, I don't know. I've written on this 3 times. I don't remember. All right. Well, let's see. It's that massive Act 4-4.
Yeah.
I know. It's lots of hacking. What is the very bond of love? Wow, that's good.
Prosperity.
Yeah, that's pretty cynical, huh? True, though, if you look at the statistics. That, and then you know about the 5 compliments to every criticism rule. It's the best predictor of your relationship success. Is for every time you say you want to criticize your significant other, give 5 compliments. So we have that rule in my house. So I'm sitting there, I have a list of stock compliments. They're like, oh no, it's coming. I do it with the dog even. I don't want my dog to leave me. All right, no questions? You sure?
Should we have any questions?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, is it that straightforward, or did you just like, do we have another one of these situations where it was too long and we just said screw it? So I mean, you don't want to. You're just gonna. Yeah. It's a shame. It's a good play.
Wait, so how is it a tragedy if his wife comes back to life and all these things seem to be actually kind of nice?
Is it a tragedy? It's so this is worth talking about. I mean, we'll hopefully get to a little bit more of this, but there's the three parts of the play, and this is why this is part of the reason why it's so amazing. Is that so the first part is a mini tragedy, right? And then you have just a Midsummer Night's Dream pastoral comedy with like every stock comic trope you can imagine thrown in, and then you've got this weird thing at the end that makes it a romance. And so it's really got, so you remember Fry's discussion about how a tragedy is an incomplete comedy? Yeah, so this is all of Fry's good ideas he stole from Shakespeare. So it's that sort of thing. So and we'll talk about this today about how Leontes' ambivalence with the comic genre and how it bites him in the butt but then saves him. And yeah.
Would you consider Cecilia the Greenland?
No, I wouldn't. But that's kind of weird because it reverses, right? Because no, I guess that doesn't. No, I think the place where everybody's dancing around and frolicking and escaping from tyrant fathers, and that would be my.
Is that on the coast of something?
Oh yeah, the coast of Bohemia is proverbial for it doesn't exist, but so when you wash it up on the coast of Bohemia, Bohemia doesn't have a coast, but apparently somebody found that at a certain time that Shakespeare would have known about it. Bohemia did have a coast. It's the shifting voting districts or whatever. So we all got to meet Autolycus, right? Do we love Autolycus? Autolycus is my favorite. I like when he narrates what the person they need to look out for looks like in his name. He just describes himself. He says, "Yeah, look out for him. He'll steal from you," and steals from him. It's like it's a apocryphal story of Michael Jordan explaining a long series of moves he was going to do to his defender, and then doing it, and then just doing it over and over again every time down. And it was so good that that's Autolycus. He's the Michael Jordan of whatever it is that he's doing. Or rather, we'll say that Michael Jordan is the Autolycus of basketball. Okay. Well, so my favorite part is with Autolycus is when he's sitting there pondering about how he could make a profit if he sells out the prince to the king, and he won't do it. Does anyone remember why?
It's a good deed.
Yeah, because he's to be inconsistent with his profession. He's got professional.
It has to be a true name.
Yeah, you got to have standards, man. You can't just go around being a half-ass knave, Yeah, and then so as we'll see that Leontes, like Othello, has a big problem with chance, and chance is a little bit different in Bohemia, right? You remember? So like, what is the happy couples, the happy fleeing couple? You remember when what's his name? Florimel, Florizel, Florismel. So he's explaining to Camillo what his plan is. You remember what his big plan is?
Just to set sail.
Go
somewhere.
Yeah, just like we're just throwing it out there. Screw it, man. So what's your plan? Just gonna get a boat, start sailing, man. And then Camillo. So does that work as a comedy? Because Camillo sort of he thwarts that and gives him a good idea, but from his perspective, it's still chance, or is it? Does Camillo sell him out? Do you think that do you read that hostily, like he ought to slash Camillo's throat since he takes the throne? I would. That's a sellout. I don't do that. You can say, I'm going to tell your dad and be upfront about it, but don't be like, oh yeah, do this, here's the plan, and go. Actually, I miss Leontes. I've got a woman's longing for him. Okay. No more questions? Yeah, the other one you shouldn't need a hint on. If you read it, you'll get that. The big temptation is to just be the comic thing and let chance. You ate something? You ate something? I thought you were eating something wrong. You got skip it? How do I like that? No, it'll come around. Don't worry. Have faith in chance. 3 seconds. Pass them up. It's funny, I went over so yeah, 3 seconds. Explaining my joke again. So why was Autolycus's thing significant?
It sets them up, like sets up the whole play as a comedy, essentially.
That'll work. Anybody else want to field their... So the thing is, even if you have something, yeah.
I said because it would have made everything else, like, it would have caused, like, less problems in the end. Like, if you had just said it, like, there would have been, like, all the drama, like, trying to figure everybody out. If you just said, hey, there's that.
Yeah. It is ironic in the Alanis Morissettean sense that nobody believes him. Because that's his hustle, is that he can just go around telling the truth and no one believes him. But then he has the secret to the whole thing and nobody believes him. It's a good character. All right, and then the floor smells. Why is that significant? This is a gimme. Again? Are you coming in drunk? Be honest. Okay. Well, because of comedy and chance, right? So that Florismel is willing to throw everything to the winds. And then Leontes, we all got that right, because obviously he's the. I like the idea of in my one of my papers on it. I talk about the difference between a resurrected maternal figure and a zombie from the grave. About how the staging tries to make that less frightening.
Why did they wait 16 years to reveal to him that she was alive? Like, I would be mad.
I mean, her whole life's over. She spent her whole life in either dead or in a
basement.
Yeah, in a basement. Yeah, I mean, well, it's a interesting kind of self-fulfilling prophecy thing. Like the oracle said, and Paulina enforces the oracle. So you wonder if Paulina sent somebody to the. Maybe Paulina is the oracle. I don't know.
Well, you can never escape prophecy in these things. Like, the harder you try to escape your prophecy, the harder it is.
Well, and Paulina brings this up, but I mean but Paulina is the one that makes the prophecy come true. It wasn't the prophecy that made the prophecy come true. So that's. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question, man. That's a.
Well, it seemed like the only thing that was unmendable, that was really his fault, was that the daughter got sent away. Because the son just sort of died, and that was sort of kind of weird.
Which is another kind of weird thing. He just dies.
But then I think Hermione's kind of like, I won't forgive him until the damage he deliberately did is undone. So his daughter returns, then she can come back.
Right.
It seems like.
Yeah. Yeah, that was kind of a sending the daughter away was sort of. I think we would frown on that, right?
We also frown on burning her.
Is what he was going to do.
What was the order of the speakers? Correct order of the speakers?
Oh, on the quiz?
Yeah, Autolycus.
Autolycus, Florizel, or Florismel is how it will always be in my mind now, and Leontes. I think, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, it's not, and this is why the Victorians and during the Age of Realism did not gush about this play. It's not. If you're into realism, this isn't that, right? I mean, this is very implausible. Yes, sir.
3 ways that you make money. I put dice and what was the other one? You play dice.
Probably.
He stinks.
Yeah. So what was that?
He stole purses and sold cheap goods.
Yeah. So just a stole cut purse, sold. What did he sell? This is kind of ballads, right? And that's and then that true ones, because if somebody writes it down, that's how you can tell that they're true. Like they're giving birth to the bag of money and stuff. That's. But so he's sort of a selling ballads, selling plays, poems, that sort of thing.
Wasn't he a messenger for a king at some point?
Yeah, he has a mysterious past. Got whipped out of court, according to him. Because so who knows?
Couldn't you say that conning and thieving are 2 different things?
Conning and thieving.
Yeah, like pickpocketing versus like actually conning someone to giving you money. He gets them to bribe him.
Yeah, but I mean, he's willing to do both. I'd like to think that that his pickpocketing is because he uses good magician's tricks too. So it's to me like a pickpocket is less than like a robber. It's like not strong arm. It's an art. Because you're like hey look at this. So this will happen. Any of you have been to Europe in the past 3 years? This has been the big thing. Like they come up with a ring and they're like, oh, is this your ring? And then, so what you do is just, get away. But the idea is if they're good, which is they're trying to rip off, they're just doing a diversion thing, right? And they're just like, and you don't even know what happened because your mind focuses. They're good. A good pickpocket's a good cognitive neuroscientist. Yeah.
I remember my mom got pickpocketed. The guy accidentally pushed on her while walking on one side. And he apologized. And while he was apologizing, he slipped out her wallet that was on the other side.
Yeah, classic diversion. Yeah. Yeah, that's a. I respect a good pickpocket, but that's why I just get my perimeter and I'm just like. It's like you might steal my wallet, but if you come in my personal bubble, I'm gonna punch you.
They use kids in Prague too. They have little kids come up and distract you.
Yeah, good stuff. There's a. If you're into that, I just read this book. It's called Sleights of Mind. It's about the cognitive neuroscience of pickpocketing and magic tricks. It's fun stuff.
I've seen ones that they will steal a watch off your wrist and you won't even know it.
Yeah.
That's how good they are.
Yeah, I mean they come up on. So you come up on stage and it's like, I'm going to steal your watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And then there's just this like. Yeah, it's an art. All right. Well, I guess we should get through the lecture. We're not looking good because I'm still on only card number 9 from yesterday's or Monday's lecture. And this is the fun one too because all right, so let's go back in time. We're talking about the debt that Polixenes. I swear I spelled it wrong so many times it changed it in my head. We'll call him Polly. But Polly's skipping out on a debt, and then we talked about the exchange of caring for the children in exchange for access to the sex cell, right? A good evolutionary psychologist thing. And so his debt on leaving at the time when she's about to give birth is he's skipping out on his debt because he's supposed to, in the evolutionary bargain, he's supposed to stick around and care for the kid, right? And so he's passing his debt on to who? Yeah, so Leontes doesn't get the access to the sex cells, but does get. But this is just a hallucination because we all decided that we don't really think that it's Polixenes' kid, right? At this point, is there anybody willing to say that this kid is a bastard? So what we're going to do right now is we're going to proceed as if we were a jealous husband, like an irrationally jealous husband building a paranoid scenario about what happened. All right. So let's say that because this is a biological thing, this is your inner primate that would be upset about this sort of debt thing, because this wouldn't be our access to it consciously unless you had read an evolutionary psychology textbook would be muddled. You wouldn't be consciously thinking that, oh, he had access to the sex cell, but I have to raise the young. That's not how we primates do it. So it's so it's going unconscious. So there'd be an unconscious suspicion, right? I've got to find a better way to talk about unconscious stuff. So if that were Leontes' motivation, convincing Polixenes to stay would be evidence that that's not what's going on, right? Because why else would he? Why is he so intent on this guy hanging around? It's been 9 months. I don't know how friendly you are with your guys, but I got some dude staying in my house for 9 months. Yeah, it's time to bounce, dude. We're about to have a new kid, and I love you and everything, but my couch is getting a permanent imprint of your butt on it. Anybody have anybody living on their couch? Oh, at least they have a room. Are they paying rent?
No,
Oh, yeah. All right. We got to get through this lecture because I got so much to do. All right. So, but as happens, if Hermione and not Leontes convinces him, then that would just show his suspicion that he's not only in danger of just being cuckolded, but also full-blown losing his mate. So, Hermione, let's look at line 28 on 1-2, page 6. So you, sir, charge him too coldly, a la Lucio. Tell him you are sure all in Bohemia as well, the satisfaction the bygone day proclaimed. Say this to him and be this. Anyway, so she does 3 things in this little blurb. She one, emphasizes Leontes' impotence and inability to act. Right? So she says, I had thought, sir, to have held my peace until you had drawn oaths from him not to stay. So she's sitting here planning. That it's like, of course you're going to fail, you jackass. Now look at the master in action, right? So she paraphrases Lucio and intimates that she understands how to charge Polixenes in a way that Leontes does not. So she's got inner workings to the way that his desire works that Leontes doesn't, and she'll be able to get to get the kind of behavior that she wants from him where Leontes can't. And then refers to some vague satisfaction that happened some bygone day that indicated to her that whatever he had cooking in Bohemia, he was perfectly happy to stir a spoon here. Right? So we look at that again. The satisfaction the bygone day proclaimed. Because if all was, all right, because his excuse is that he's got to get back to Bohemia. He's got stuff going on there. Well, if you had stuff going on there, you wouldn't have been here, with sounds like a catty mistress. All right. So here's good. Somebody give me a ham reading of Hermione from 34 on.
To tell he longs to see his son were strong, but let say so then, and let him go. But let him swear so, and he shall not stay. We'll thack him hence with distaffs. Yet of our royal presence I'll adventure the borrow of a week. When at Bohemia you take my lord, I'll give you on my commission, to let him there a month behind, for party yet good deed, Leontes. I love thee not a jar, oh there clock behind, what lady she her lord, you'll say.
Thank you. So here, I'll give it a little paraphrase. She slights Polly's relationship with his son. So that's kind of weird. Why would she do that? She's like, oh, you don't really care about your son. She says, I love my son. No, you don't. So maybe she has a replacement in mind. Maybe she's like, oh no, that's your old nest. Let's. So I'm just saying, this is. We're just doing a jealous husband primate reading of what's going on here, right? And so if he avows his love for his son, she won't just let him go. So say you love your son, and not only can you go, but we'll thwack you away with distaffs. Thwack is a great word. I want everyone to use thwack more. And so, hey, we'll beat your ass off if you're going to say that your son's important. And distaffs are they're little sticks used by women to spin flax. So that's what that is, in case you were wondering. Then she offers in exchange to let Leontes stay away longer. So if you're feeling the buds of jealousy, hey, as a prize, you can keep your ass out of here for a while. I hear there's going to be some hot shepherds in town that time of year. And then this delightfully dispassionate profession of love for Leontes. I love thee not a jar of the clock behind, what lady she her lord. Oh. So this recalls, let's turn the page real quick. And because this tells a lot. And then Leontes was, I'm on page 9, it's like 101. Why, that was when 3 crabbed months had soured themselves death, ere I could make thee open thy white hand and clap thyself my love. Then thou didst utter, I am yours forever. What is he talking about? Yeah, Yeah, so is this a hot, passionate comedy engagement? 3 crabbed months, this is not, this is, so let's look at the dynamic here, all right? So do you think maybe she was really as swept away with him as he was with her?
No.
Yeah, so this is sort of a, this kind of puts a wedge in the party, right? And I don't know if you can really ever forgive somebody for not falling in love with you all of a sudden. So this is probably, her decision to marry is a product of rationalization and weighing things, probably familial pressure. He's a king. He's a king, honey. So if you have a friend of a friend that's ever been in this situation and you talk to them. Because there's always, I guess there's always, right, there's a great quote in when Thackeray quotes an unknown Frenchman who says that in every loving relationship there's one who loves and one who consents to be loved. It's a great little, usually there's an imbalance, right? And it sucks to be on the end, but it sucks both ways, because anywho. Which is worse? Let's take a quick vote. Which is worse, to love the other person more or the other person to love you more and you feel guilty about it? So let's go, love the other person more is worse. The guilt. Yeah, it's split right down the middle. Probably everybody thinks that whatever position they're in right now is the worst. All right. So that's not good. So Leontes is many things, but as we'll see, he's very observant of humans, and so this wouldn't have gotten past him. Obviously, it didn't. And that probably means something, right? So she's a reluctant bride. Leontes isn't over it. And then I need a Hermione and a Polixenes.
Polixenes, ready?
Okay, I'll be Hermione.
Oh, come on.
All right, I need a Hermione, but I need a dramatic reading of Hermione.
I want you to.
Okay.
You've been by request. Let's go to start at 46, Hermione. Nay, but you, no, verily. Verily.
Verily, you put me off with limber vows, but I, though you would seek to unsphere the stars with oaths, should yet say, Sir, no going. Verily, you shall not go. A lady's verily is as potent as a lord's. Will you go yet? Force me to keep you as a prisoner? Not like a guest, so you shall pay your fees when you depart and save your thanks. How say you? My prisoner or my guest? By your dread, verily, one of them you shall be.
Your guest then, madam. To your prisoner should import offending, which is for me less easy to commit than you to punish.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. That was fabulous. So, does this sound flirtatious to you?
Dominatrix.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's like, yeah, I would, like I said, when we went over this about the quiz, like I would read this as a come on if it was said to me. So just as a side note, note how perfectly she plays the role, and I mean it's playfully, but of the woman deceived by the quote limber vows, that is not willing to let the care for sex exchange go unpaid. You shall pay your fees or be imprisoned, right? So she's doing playfully, but if she were a wronged primate, this would be a perfectly rational, well, reasonable response, right? Okay. So and then we get this tripped up stuff because they're talking about the so she acts either too much rap influence or listening to or watching too much Futurama. My kids love Futurama, so they say acts in Futurama. It's a legitimate form. Sort of ask. Acts. So there's the tripped up, right? They were not guilty. Polixenes is, I'm on page 8 now. They were, we knew not the doctrine of ill doing, nor dreamed that any did, had we pursued that life. And our weak spirits never been higher reared with stronger blood, we should have answered heaven boldly, not guilty. The imposition cleared, hereditary ours. By this we gather you have tripped sense. Oh! Uh-oh. So there's this tripped thing. My most sacred lady. Temptations have since then borne to us, for in those unfledged days was my wife a girl. Your precious self had then not crossed the eyes of my young playfellow. So, I see how Leontes might have misinterpreted Polixenes talking about tripping, right? So tripping is it's a sex metaphor, no? No?
In M&M context, maybe.
Yeah, so I tripped and fell in. It's an old joke. But you can see how it's ambiguous, right? So this is a beautiful thing about language, and this is why language is never as clear as it could be, because you've got to always allow multiple interpretations, right? So that's why you don't say I gather you fornicated since. No, you don't say that, right? Or or you could say I gather you've stolen oatmeal since. You want to leave some play so you can do the stolen oatmeal or the fornication interpretation with tripped, right? So, but anywho, that was completely pointless. I just need to stop trying to make analogies. I'm the worst I've ever known, and I've known some bad ones. But if it is, so our young innocent boys, they're holding hands in the fields. Leontes and Polixenes sitting in a tree. And then this stronger blood comes on, so what's the stronger blood? Probably, puberty comes on and screws that all up, because now, that, and then so now they're no longer not guilty. But usually people don't use the tripped up, fallen metaphor for a lawful marriage, right? If you tripped up, I mean, have any of you ever had a long proper courtship with somebody that you loved and they loved you, and then you got married and says, yeah, I was young and pure and innocent until I tripped up. Now it's more like, well, we were drinking, and sorry, man. Never mind. So Hermione brings up this trip thing, and then Polixenes, oh, my most sacred lady, temptations, more than one temptation, mind you. And then the O is set off in remembrance of his tripping. And now he's talking about specific unfledged days in which his wife was just a girl. So his to-be wife was just a girl. So you can't blame her because she's just a girl. She's not like a rational person, right? And you, Hermione, well, Leontes hadn't even seen you yet, so I can't get blamed for that, right? So there was these unfledged days involving an unseen by Leontes yet, Hermione, and then the unnamed future wife of Polixenes. After that, he hadn't seen you yet, he hadn't wooed you yet, so, like what happens in the unfledged days stays in the unfledged days, right? You guys see where I'm going with this now? Let's look at line 80. Grace to boot. Of this make no conclusion, lest you say, your queen and I are devils. So it's the queen and I, right? So the you, lest you say your queen and I are devils. So implicitly she's talking about the you she's talking about is supposed to be Leontes and Polixenes, right? You guys, because he's talking about the twin lamb days. But if I'm a paranoid husband, and I hear, lest you say your queen and I are devils, your temptations, your queen and I. That might get me scratching my head. Yet go on. The offenses we have made, you will answer. If you first sinned with us, and that with us you did continue fault, then you slip not with any but with us. So she's drawing the circle around the an interesting dynamic of the threesome, right? And I don't want to go too far into this, but so what exactly happened? And I'm in my non-scientifically verified observations, I have found that most heterosexual men that I know do not relish the idea of having his significant other having done this sort of thing. Having had his wife done this sort of thing with his best friend back in the day or otherwise, right? I don't know. Let's take an informal poll. Let's just go for of everybody. Anybody really like the idea of their significant other having big, great, hot sex parties without them before they had a cold courting? Anybody into that? Okay, good. I don't have to deal with that contingency. So if I'm Leontes, and the language I'm hearing is making this a plausible scenario, I'm going to be because remember, I'm not saying this happened. I'm saying this interpretation is there in the language that Hermione and Polixenes are saying. And so on some level, if I'm a jealous husband, I might be catching some of this. And so I'm not saying that Hermione has a vast and rampant sexual history with Polixenes. I'm not saying that they have an implicit agreement to allow Polixenes to frolic with and then impregnate Hermione, only to leave Leontes too, like the chump that he is. For the guy that had to wait 3 months before even getting the hand of a girl who's down for threesomes in the woods to feed and raise this other guy's children's. But I'm saying that Leontes is not necessarily crazy or mad if he suspects this at this point. We on board? All right. This is good confirmation bias. I saw one nod, so I think that we're all on board. So Herm, or I'll call Hermione for shortening purposes. words before Leontes' breakdown seems to confirm, because Leontes says that twice she's spoken to the purpose, and those two times are to one. What was the first time she spoke? Yeah, to accept Leontes, and then two, to get Polly to accept. We'll call them Leo and Polly. So she accepted. She condescended to allow Leo to love her, and she has the other kind of relationship with Polly, right? She's doing the begging with Polly, while Leo's doing the begging with her. And sure enough, how does Leontes respond? Well, she says, "The one, 'tis grace indeed. Why, lo, I have spoken to the purpose twice. The one forever earned a royal husband, the other for some while a friend." So she gets a dad and a cad, right? On the one hand, she has she gets the royal husband forever and a play buddy on the side for some while. And we remember this is a strategy, right? I'm sure you have friends of friends that have employed or had this strategy employed on them. No? Okay, well, you're lucky. You won't have a whole life without having a friend of a friend that this happens to. You guys are still young, so you're not into the crazy mate poaching tactics of people in their 30s yet.
What are those mate poaching tactics?
These sorts of things. What's that? Will you accept money for eggs? That's what no, will you take eggs for money? That's what he asks. Ostensibly Mamelius. That's weird. There's another dilemma. Is he in love with his son? I don't think so. Is he jealous of his son? Like, when does he completely lose it? Who whispers? Who does the whisper that sets off the whispering nothing? Hmm?
He does.
Who's he?
Well, he's the
That's actually true, isn't it? I was going to say the son because he's whispering the Winter's Tale in Mom's ear. But you're right, that's more proximate. Good job. Hold on, let me make a note. All right, anywho. So let's do a quick desire chart of the worst case scenario with Polly and Herm. So here's Polly's. B1 is to impregnate female, enjoy sex. G2, no obligations. Relationship with knowledge. Follow your instincts. Solution. No, not this time. We got a clear solution. Cuckold Leo. So, and Herms. Hot sex, good genes. Rich, stable, chump husband she can count on. Relationship with knowledge. Solution. Right? Too perfect. So we shouldn't believe it. There's nothing here is that perfect.
So that's like from Leontes' point of view?
Yeah, this is from the perspective of the paranoid perspective of the jealous husband. And Leontes turns out to be a complicated character. Okay. So while this loads up, let's look at his snap. As we ought to expect, having read Othello, the vivid description of the precise scenario of the cuckold fantasy sets off some serious machinery, right? Too hot to mingle friendships as far as mingling bloods. I have tremor cordis, so he's right? Like that. It's hard to pull that off. There's no O, but there's 6 of them. Too hot. So what does to mingle friendship far is mingling bloods?
Bloodlines all uncertain.
Yeah, so we've got uncertain bloodlines, uncertain paternity. I think it's not glossed at all here, it looks like, but it's often glossed as to the saying that if Polixenes and Hermione keep on this flirtation, it's going to end up mingling bloods, which is it's, most people didn't really believe this, but it was a sort of folk medicine theory of how pregnancy happened, was that when you had intercourse, you mingled bloods, and the mingling of the bloods somehow produced a child. So mingle bloods is a euphemism for doing the nasty. And yeah, so or maybe I also offer, I think this would work too, that to mingle friendship far as mingling bloods, which is in sharing girls. So sharing to share girls is the same thing as doing it, maybe mingling friendship far as mingling bloods. I don't know. Either way, he's definitely aroused in a manner typical of the fright, flight, or other F, which psychology tests have shown that in ambiguous circumstances, people have difficulty reading the source of their own agitation. So like for example, if you get a dude and have him run on a treadmill, well, first you show him a picture of a woman and he rates her on his attraction scale, so he gives her a 6, and then runs on a treadmill and then sits down for a minute. So he's no longer conscious of being fatigued from running on a treadmill, but he still has to all of a sudden she's an 8 because he misreads his own arousal as sexual arousal. It's fun. We're so smart. I don't think that would work on women. But so he says, I have tremor cordis on me. My heart dances, but not for joy, not joy. Well, he says it's not joy, but he doesn't say what it is, right? Could be anything else. I don't know. But my point is that he seems to be seeing a possibility for a future infraction, not a past one. So this entertainment, he calls it entertainment, which is weird, that they partake in later may, and then he says, okay, so I better read it. This entertainment may a free face put on, derive a liberty from hardiness, from bounty, fertile bosom, and well become the agent. So become the agent means that he's reading this flirtation at this point as something that could happen. Okay? This is where he's at this point. And so he doesn't seem to think that anything has happened. So weirdly, the jealous husband reading that we did is alien to Leontes. He seems to, he actually underestimates the sexual significance of the interplay that just went on between Polixenes and Polly and Herm. So he's actually not overreacting, he's underreacting, which is interesting, because that's not what we would think. So, yeah. So, and he also keeps calling their flirtations entertainment, as if they were performing for him. Uh-oh. That reminds me of a certain class. So, Leontes has a problem with knowledge. Now, neither his bosom or his brows like it. This is before. But there's something else. It's a name joke. I'm sorry. I apologize to you. I'm sorry.
Accepted.
Yeah, thanks. So, and then he snaps. So, so what do we know about Hermione? So let's rate these on a scale of 1 to 10 on likelihood. You know what? Let's not. Let's do the PowerPoint.
Nope, want that one on.
There we go. All right. Reading Leontes. So this is, we are going to be, not the one we were just on. We're looking at after the exchange, I, my good Lord, on the next page, page 10. So, so he goes at the end of his, his brows don't like it. Then he shifts his attention to his son, which he should, if he's a primate, because that's the real thing in question. So remember, at this point, before he switches to his son, it doesn't occur to him that his son's not his. So we're watching him sort of manufacture this. So then he starts, he evokes this biological breeding metaphor involving steers, heifers, and calves. And yet the steer, the heifer, and the calf are all called neat. Neat, of course, means having horns, right? And then he begins building this long conceit about his imagined cow breeding idea. So we're down to the beginning of the speech. Thou want'st a rough patch, and the shoots that I have to be full like me. What does that mean? It's a pash.
What line?
Hmm?
What line is this?
We're on 120, I guess, 8. Yeah, her hair, like you got a kind of full-grown hair. And the shoots that I have. I remember he's in a cow metaphor. He's talking about steers, heifers, and calves, right? So the shoots. I hope I didn't just rip my jacket. Yeah, I heard something pop. Hopefully it was just a tendon in my shoulder. So you lack the shaggy hair and horns to be a full-grown or a full-fledged cuckold like me. And you know what? I actually think that they overgloss cuckold jokes, and believe it or not, with all of my readings, I think that they call everything cuckold, and I think they overdo it in the notes. But it's an interesting move because he's using imaginary evidence from his imagined metaphor, his cow metaphor, to start building a rational argument. You see what I'm saying? Because he doesn't have horns, and he doesn't have, like I guess the mature cows have furrier heads. I have no idea. I just read that and they said that. So if any of you have evidence to the contrary, please keep it to yourself because I've got nothing to do with it. But and then he says, yet they say we are so almost as like as eggs. So what's this?
Eggs all look the same.
Yeah, so it's the evidence for paternity, right? It's like me and my son look so much alike that we might as well just be two eggs. You can't tell the difference. Sorry. So anyway, I say that Leontes was confused by taking his conceit too seriously because he now loses his faith in his own power of sensual judgment, or ocular proof from Othello, because he's talking about what they say. That's now his evidence, right? So his first evidence was from his imagined metaphor, but he's disconnected with reality. So now his relationship with knowledge has gone from his own fantasy to what they say. So grounding his knowledge on what they say. Yeah. So what's the problem with the they that give it to him? What they say. They say, oh, that's lovely. Good job formatting. That was formatted right on my computer, by the way. Women say so that will say anything. But were they false as ore-dyed blacks, as wind as waters, false as dice are to be wished by one that fixes no bound between his and mine, yet it were true to say, this boy were like me. All right. The women say so that will say anything. So the problem with the they that see the resemblance between the steer and the calf is, of course, that they were women. And incidentally, this is sort of a truism from everything that I learned when I was an undergraduate in Renaissance classes, is that women were not considered to be reliable witnesses in legal proceedings, and I was taught that they weren't allowed to testify. That turned out to be a big load of horse crap. but it was a different thing. It wasn't with the same weight as a man's testimony. So they were considered unreliable witnesses.
Why?
Part of the stereotype thing, the whole.
Yeah.
Because they were the weaker sex.
They were the weaker sex.
They were subject to
They'll say anything, as Leontes would say, I guess, was the common, was the take on it. Yeah, they were lower on on the great chain of being. They were the lowest thing you could be and still be human.
But he still doesn't listen to like antagonists, right? And he thinks that he's being crazy.
Oh yeah, he doesn't listen to anybody.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, look, I answered the question. All right, but they were false as ore dyed, blacks as wind as waters, false as dice are to be wished by one. So, so Leontes' contribution to the rich and varied discourse on the problem of women is that concerns the possibility that women are false. And this is this was the big thing in Othello too, right? So this is just this is more of an existential problem getting dumped on. So this is good. Yeah, we're going to get through about 1/10 of this PowerPoint. But so what does the syntax of the sentence lead us to believe about what type of sentence it is? Just this part. So what kind of, just imagine this isn't here, take it away. What punctuation would you expect this sentence to have? Yeah. Sounds like a question to me, right? So he's sort of contemplating, but were they false? But then of course the punctuation tells us whether we end the sentence at the semicolon or the period, or the dash for that matter. No question marks, right? I checked the I always check the punctuation, and yeah, in the folio, that's the right kind of punctuation. And I give it to the Signet editor for once in his lifetime not sticking a question mark where it's not necessary.
Isn't that sort of an if-then statement though?
Yeah, as we'll get to it. But you look ahead in the PowerPoint, man. Quit ruining my lecture, Blake. I'm just kidding, but yeah, it kind of we'll see. Monday looks like that. It's an if, and it's also it's kind of a logical proposition. But were they, yet were it true? But were they false, yet were it true? It's a balance thing. It also kind of works as a proverb. But wow, that slipped in. So false as ore dyed blacks means. Wait, I'll bet you if I go one forward, no. Ah, there we go. Yeah, so garments worn out by too much dyeing. So I guess this makes a whole beans of a lot of sense to me. If you keep dyeing a shirt over and over again, dyeing it black, it wears it out. How is this false? There's the racist interpretation, which I think is probably not wrong entirely, is that this was before the radical enlightenment and elimination of racism, that we all know exists now. But yeah, right. And but yeah, that being dyed black was equated with dishonesty. Ardens adds a more obviously false sense, with clothes dyed black to conceal flaws. Or dyed means dyed over. That makes more sense, right? Yeah. So the sense of false then is the sense of mendacious or deceitful, by trying to cover over something for the sake of appearance. You're not getting your quizzes back today. Thanks, dear Signet editors. All right. Different question. How are wind and waters false? Inconsistent, treacherous. Are they mendacious, deceitful?
They lie to you all the time. They lie to you all the time.
Yeah, only if you're cuckoo, right? But they're if they're deceitful, then that implies an animistic world like the one controlled by Puck or Ariel, that gives wind and water powers of intention. I might be wrong, unlikely, but there seems to be no evidence of this kind of magic at work in the play. You might disagree. Keep it to yourself. Possibly died too much. Wind and waters are false because you can't count on them. Because you can't count on them because they are unpredictable, inconstant, contingent, like comedy. They are not true in the way that a true line or a true spoke on a bike is not. They are not evil, you just can't count on them. Right? So false isn't just wrong, as in off, bent, crooked. As dice are to be false as dice are to be wished by one that fixes no bound twixt his and mine. Yeah, what kind of false is this? Signet translation, unattempted. Pardon. False is a cheat, someone who accepts no boundary between his and mine. Could wish loaded dice to be. So in this idea is you've got a guy that's loaded some dice, and he wants the roll to be false because it wouldn't be a true roll, because a true roll on true dice would be completely random, right? So his loaded dice would want the dice to be false because they were loaded, so a loaded throw that got the number that he had would be false, which is be the complete opposite of false of being chance, right? Because true dice are pure chance, and if they're loaded, then they're false, and he wants that outcome to be the false throw that you see how complicated that is? So this relies on loaded dice that would cheat the pure chance of the dice throw, which would mean the exact opposite of false. All right, I get this. I would go with this, but I don't see anything that says. You see anything about loaded dice in there? I mean, you see the fixes one, but the fixes doesn't go to the dice. It's by the boundary guy that's not fixing the. So Crumbo says, as false as someone who is trying to claim my stuff as his own wants the dice that we are using to gamble with my stuff being my wager to be. So I hope I explained this because I have no idea what I mean. The false thing here is the dice, not the boundary disrespecter. So it's not the guy that's false, right? It's the dice. And this sense of false is entirely subjective. The boundary disrespecter is hoping for a false outcome, and he's defining false as being one that's unfavorable to Leontes. But that outcome is false only from the implied protagonist. That's Leontes' perspective. And we've seen time and again how, contingent. Shakespeare's men thinks women's desires are, so here the analogy would be, so the boundary disrespecter is Polixenes, the dice is Hermione, and the property is the sun. Where is Leontes? So the implied protagonist is defied, so he's the person that the dice would be false to, center of the world. It's also the person that is using his wife as dice in a gambling game with his friend, cuckold porn fantasy, and let's call it a day.
Like the passage identification, are you going to use passages that were on previous pages?
Yeah, just like I did with the others, like some of them will be overlaps. More likely they'll be from the same conversation or the same passage, just not the exact same quote.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm 47 of 70. Wow. Yes, sir.
So I was just going to ask, so for that...
I forgot my glasses, so, there's that. I could wear my sunglasses, and I could kind of see you. I have to erase this just because I'm going to lean up against the chalkboard and ruin my seersucker jacket. I appreciate the, I have no idea who did that. Okay. So, yeah, I can't do this. It's just, this makes me too cool. All right, any questions? Oh, wait, let me make sure I didn't forget the quiz again. Oh, I did. Not. maybe I did. That's last week's quiz. Oh, good news, I have it right here. Well, this will be one of those good ones that you won't have to drop. I think I'm dropping 3 anyway, right?
Yeah.
And then if you went to the Jewish mysticism thing, that's 4. And then the rest are just a little bit. And so it's really got. So you remember Fry's discussion about how a tragedy is an incomplete comedy. Yeah. So this is all of Fry's good ideas he stole from Shakespeare. So it's that sort of thing. So and we'll talk about this today about how Leontes' ambivalence with the comic genre and how it bites him in the butt but then saves him. And yeah.
Would you consider Sicilia the Greenland? Or?
No, I wouldn't. But that's kind of weird because it reverses, right? Because no, I guess that doesn't. No, I think the place where everybody's dancing around and frolicking and escaping from tyrant fathers, and that would be my.
Is that on the coast of something?
Oh yeah, well the coast of Bohemia is proverbial for it doesn't exist, but so when you wash it up on the coast of Bohemia, Bohemia doesn't have a coast, but apparently somebody found that at a certain time that Shakespeare would have known about it. Bohemia did have a coast. It's the shifting voting districts or whatever. More than 1% total on your overall, so it'd be like getting. So say you got 5 out of 10 on a quiz, and then if you missed them, if you got bad grades because you weren't there because you have too many absences, you're kind of screwed anyway because of the absence policy. So there's really, like dropping the quiz grade wouldn't really help anyway. But I'll look into it. I appreciate crazy scrawled, threatening notes written on the. Yeah.
The absence policy again. The absence, you said something about absence policy.
Yeah, it's in the syllabus.
It's like 2%.
I forget what it is exactly, but yeah, it's if you miss. I mean, if you get sick and you've been in contact with me, then you don't really have to worry about it.
Yeah, it says students that exceed 2 absences at the semester's end can expect 2 full percentage points deducted from their final grade for each additional unexcused absence.
Yeah. I know, brutal. But then if you don't have that, then nobody comes to class. All right, do we have any questions? Glad this happened after the evaluations. No questions. If you have anxieties, which I see some of you becoming very anxious, just contact me and we'll talk about it. They're like, oh no, it's coming. I do it with the dog even. I don't want my dog to leave me. All right, no questions? You sure? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, is it that straightforward, or did you just do we have another one of these situations where it was too long and we just said screw it? So I mean, you don't want to. You're just gonna. Yeah. It's a shame. It's a good play.
Wait, so how is it a tragedy if his wife comes back to life and all these things seem to be actually kind of nice?
Is it a tragedy? It's so this is worth talking about. I mean, we'll hopefully get to a little bit more of this, but there's the 3 parts of the play, and this is why it's this is part of the reason why it's so amazing. Is that so the first part is a mini tragedy, right? And then you have just a Midsummer Night's Dream pastoral comedy with like every stock comic trope you can imagine thrown in, and then you've got this weird thing at the end that makes it a romance. Got it? Yeah.
So did Perdita and I forget the prince guy, did they actually get married, or did they just understand that they could get married if they wanted to?
They did get married.
Yeah.
They did. Okay.
Yeah, it was an off scene.
Oh, okay.
think, that's what I understand. I mean, I don't know. I've written on this 3 times, and I don't remember. All right. Well, let's see. It's that massive Act 4-4.
God.
I know. It's lots of hacking. What is the very bond of love? Wow, that's good.
Prosperity.
Yeah, that's pretty cynical, huh? True, though, if you look at the statistics. That, and then you know about the 5 compliments to every criticism rule. It's the best predictor of your relationship success. Is for every time you say you want to criticize your significant other, give 5 compliments. So we have that rule in my house. So I'm sitting there, I have a list of stock compliments.